So a very welcome to Sprung, and today we are going to be doing a live interview. I'm Jackie Wilson-Smith and I'm here with Dr. Michele Allan. Michele, welcome to Sprung.
Thanks, Jackie.
And we're very honoured to have you here today. Michele has got a wealth of experience, is the chair of many boards and has been involved in food and agribusiness and manufacturing for many years across Australia. So today, Michele, I'd like to start off just by giving you a short, brief background about what Sprung is all about, firstly.
Great.
So Sprung stands for, it's a springboard. It's about providing small to medium-sized enterprises ideas on how they can innovate better, adapt better, build in resilience, and finally, by using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a springboard for innovating towards a better future. So, and finally, Sprung is a global business. So this is a term that we have developed, which means that we've got a panel of experts who are contributors to the Sprung content and facilitators of the programs. And these people span from across the world, which is really exciting in itself to be connecting with a group of dynamic women from Wales in the UK through to the States, India, and there are a couple of us from Australia, which is really cool. And we also span different ages as well. So on a personal level, I'm learning a lot as we work together. So over to you, Michele. Could you please tell us a little bit more about your background and particularly the boards and the organisations that you've been involved in over the years?
So my background's varied in terms of the companies I've worked with. So I started working in 1976 for Johnson & Johnson as a project manager in their research and development laboratories developing water-resistant sunscreens. Surprisingly, they didn't exist in those days. I thought to be a better leader in R&D, I really needed to understand the customer. So I got a role with a local company in marketing and sales for a little while. Then went back to ICI, leading research and development in pharmaceuticals and consumer products. At the time, we were importing the technology. We were doing technology transfer on drug development, but also they needed water-resistant sunscreen development. From there, I was given the opportunity to join Dulux, which was a division of ICI, to introduce quality assurance, because in the 80s, there was no such thing. And the only way to introduce that was by collaboration, surprisingly. From there, I moved into other multinational organisations, predominantly running research and development. My largest job in 2000s was running the global research and development for Amcor. Again, that's all about collaboration and getting people to work together. My final executive role was running a listed food company, which was really interesting. Since then, I've been involved in food and agriculture boards. So I've chaired Meat and Livestock Australia. I now chair Wine Australia, which are research and development corporations. I chair a university, which is interesting, probably less collaborative than everyone would think. And I chair a number of other boards in horticulture and grains. So I'm really looking forward to our discussion, Jackie.
Oh, thank you so much. We are so lucky to have such a wealth of experience here. And in particular, I'm picking up that you've talked a lot about collaboration, which is very much the theme of today. So that brings me to our next question, which is why do we need to collaborate? What's your view on this?
So there's a whole lot of reasons we need to collaborate, and over my many decades of working, the resources to do innovation or anything else you're trying to do have been diminished. And the groups of people where there could have been 30 or 40 people working in a group, now you might have 2 or 3. And so if I use an example, a number of us travelled to the Netherlands last year to look at alternative processes for cropping and floating dairies and a few things like that. And up the back of the bus, a group of us realised that for us to move forward as a country in food and agriculture, we needed to collaborate. And that collaboration needed a leader. And the leader of the collaboration needed to have, the reason they needed to lead was to get everyone to get a better outcome for this country. And so we designed what we call Project Lotus, with a leader in the centre and people like CSIRO, the universities, the federal government, all coming together. But the leader, you need a leader in collaborations. Collaborations don't happen on their own. And so what we've called this is a system leadership role. And the system leadership role doesn't do the doing, it brings the ideas to the collaborators. It encourages collaborators to work together, and we all work for a common goal. So I think that is why we as a country need collaboration, because all of those entities I've just spoken about don't have the capability of taking food and agriculture forward in this country and growing our exports.
And what about those types of leaders? You know, that sounds like that's a special type of leader. Can you tell me a little bit more about a collaborative leader?
So it needs to be apolitical. It needs, the leader really needs to be there to achieve the goal that the group have agreed needs to be achieved. And they need to be really the conductor of the orchestra, for want of a better comparator, because they're there pulling the pieces together and making sure there's a delivery. They're not actually the doers, but they need to be there for the right reason, i.e. in the particular case of Project Lotus, to grow the economy and grow by collaboration of all of these groups, because the groups who are involved in the collaboration bring together more skills than the individuals themselves. Even though CSIRO, the food and ag section of CSIRO, is the biggest section, they don't have what the research and development corporations have. They don't have those skill sets, and they don't have what the universities have. So there may be some crossover in those collaborations, but the individual groups together, 2 and 2 makes 10.
Yeah, that's great. And where do you see collaborations are typically going wrong? Because you often hear that, you know, it all starts out well.
I think where people are competing. So I'm thinking more and more that you need a system leader. In any collaboration, you need a leader, because in the case of Australia, the universities will be competing with the research and development corporations, who will be competing with CSIRO. They all have deliverables to their stakeholders. The system leader has a deliverable to a higher order, which in this case would be Australia. So I think where collaboration doesn't work is where you get conflicts of interest, where you're not aiming for the same goal, that the projects or whatever we're working on, the terms of reference are not clear, and we aren't all in there for the same reason. I think that's typically where collaborations go wrong. And people's politics get in the way, whether it's internal company politics. Not everyone can put aside the politics of their organisation to collaborate.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts then on what are some tools, or what are some things that we can do to help create a successful collaborative business model?
So I really think that somebody has to have a higher order goal to bring the parties together. So if I look at the food clusters in Australia, the Food and Agribusiness Growth Centre had a higher order goal to bring groups together to collaborate, because individually they might not have the time, the capability, all the resources in terms of money or people to actually do what they need to do to grow their business. So by bringing a group of people together with a system leader, and in this case it might be the CEO and the board of that cluster, actually you can share much of your resources. So for instance, if it's a cluster of SMEs in the food industry, they may only need a food auditor once a quarter or once every 12 months. So you might share a resource that's not required by everybody. You also might share how you go about innovation, what you've learned from, do you do a big leap or do you do small incremental steps? So I think collaboration is about sharing and learning as well as all towards the same goal.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to share with you, I've just brought it up on the screen if you can see this. It's the start of potentially a sustainable collaboration model that
Yes.
the Sprung team are working on. So we're looking at, the left-hand side would be all of your different stakeholders in a collaboration, and they're all putting inputs in, whether it's time, energy, money, skills, and they're putting effort into some sort of a greater goal. And the idea for it to be sustainable into the future is that each of those stakeholders needs to feel that they're getting a fair output that's representative of what their inputs are. And then the benefit, though, of working together is that you have a couple of interesting things start to happen. You have a shared network value starts to get created. So of all the people who are collaborating, they get to benefit from being within a network of some kind, where whatever the cooperative or coalition or some sort of alliance from working together. But then the other piece, which I think talks a bit to your concept of collaborative leadership, is that there is a better outcome that's bigger and greater than the sum of all the parts, but it also is a way of potentially benefiting the greater community at large, whether that's a country or a community, a geographical thing, or it might be within an industry, or it could have global implications if we're that could be reapplied. But I'm so intrigued by this conversation, and you've really helped me, that I'd like to spend some more work on this model. It's a work in progress to somehow incorporate the concept of the very important role of the collaborative leader.
Yes,
so
yeah.
What do you
I think the leader actually does the doing probably without a lot of reward. So the shared benefit will be a higher order value, I suspect. And you might find it difficult to find a system leader. In our case, the government has given some appropriation to a food and agribusiness growth centre. And in the Australian context, that means that it isn't politically tied, and it has the ability to be the system leader if it wants to be the system leader, because it can facilitate people getting together, put together a forward roadmap, and encourage people to be part of that. I think what the participants get out of it is greater projects, a greater pie of money to deliver projects, and the satisfaction of delivering a better outcome for the country, which is very altruistic, and at my age you can do that.
I love that. All right, well, I'm working on it. So Michele, a final word from you. What questions should I have asked you about collaboration today?
Why do people want to collaborate? Why would people, I referred to the project I'm working on to bring in significant players. Why do they want to collaborate? It's a really interesting question, because I have talked to a lot of people about a collaboration for the country. They've all said yes. They've all given their time. The question would be, at what point will they stop collaborating? And is it do they feel personally that they're actually contributing because I've asked them to? Or is it the higher order goal? What entices people to collaborate and what stops them collaborating would be an interesting extension of this discussion. So, you know, we know joint ventures don't work when our values aren't aligned.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a values question, maybe it's a higher order goal question. What do these collaborators get out of it? At the moment, they're only doing what's best for Australia. So I think, why do you go in? So participants in collaboration, why would you join? Why would you participate in this? And why would you leave? Would be an interesting question to understand.
Yeah, no, it certainly would. Well, let's continue this conversation. I'd love to have you back on Sprung, and very, very grateful. Thank you very much for your contributions today.
Thank you, Jackie, and I wish you and your colleagues well.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye, Michelle.
Thank you.